Ih, un secondo. Thirty seconds to go. Oh, according to my watch. Yeah, it's just something turned very well.
Oh, this is so annoying. I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear us now, Rachel?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear you before.
Okay. Okay. We've reached item 7.4 on the agenda with no issues being raised.
Okay, thank you.
I just actually ask about an update in relation to the expenses for the by-elections which were being taken up by North Somerset. Has there been any progress? Has the cheque been paid to them? I mean, how things stand on that?
We haven't paid them any money, no.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
No.
And presumably they'll be discussing it and taking it up with us and arguing their case.
I'm not sure where we've got to it, to tell you the truth, because it's sort of we're at a bit of a dead end. Where are we going with this, John? Because there was a bit of confusion about paying the first invoice, wasn't there? And then Steve said, no, I wasn't to pay it, and so I haven't paid any of them. I'm not quite sure where we are with it.
Hold on. The two invoices, one for the July by-election was apparently reasonable, and as far as I'm concerned, that one should be paid. The rather larger invoice for the two by-elections which took place in December, those look unreasonable, at least as far as the printing costs are concerned, and I've asked for those to be explained. I believe that Steve has submitted a query to North Somerset Council, but I don't know whether we've had any reply.
John, I thought we'd agreed that the invoice for the July by-election was too high because they were double charging us.
Yes.
They were charging us for staff manning the election booths when they would have had to have been there anyway for the general election, and we felt that was unreasonable so that they were suggesting we split the costs of the staff who were manning the polling stations when, you know, there was no reason to do that because they were there anyway for the general election.
Not my memory, but
yes, that is correct. Yes,
it is.
Yes, because there was.
I was dealing with someone at North Somerset about this, but obviously I haven't been CC'd into anything that Steve's done, so I'm a bit lost about where we are with this, Steve.
I think your assessment, John, was the other way round. The July one.
Sometimes since I looked at it, I must admit.
It's a duplication of the expenses at the July because of the fact that they were already there in the two.
But there was also an issue regarding the printing costs at the time of the election. That coincided in December, I believe.
Yeah, I think I've had a look at both of the invoices. I think from my scanning of the early one, the July one, I think they did divide out the costs. The trouble is with the invoice or the spreadsheet that North Somerset provided, it's overly complicated in that it's got a number of columns, and you have to be careful which one you're looking at because they've given our proportion of the costs, their proportion of the costs, and then in the final total they've added them up and said whether they've been allocated 50-50 or not, which doesn't seem to. Looks like they've made some mistakes in what they've said is shared and what isn't. So I thought that one was, when I looked at it, okay. And I must say, I did look at the December ones, and I couldn't. I mean, that was the cost. So I can't see that, even though it's extortionately high, I can't really see much that we can challenge them on. If that's the cost if that's the printing costs they say they've incurred, which includes, I'm not sure whether you had poll cards or not, but
yes,
there
were polling
cards. Yeah, they're expensive. The polling packs, which is the postal vote packs, expensive, and there's two-way postage on those, so posting out, returning them, and staffing costs. All the staffing costs would have been allocated on the second election. So I'm not surprised that the second election is substantially higher than the first one, but it's very high. I mean, it's obviously North Somerset are recharging everything they possibly can. And, in the general election, the principal part of that cost will be recharged to the government anyway. So North Somerset didn't really pay anything out of that at all. So
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, that's true. They don't. They'll bill the government for their costs. That's the parliamentary costs.
Steve, sorry, but you think it's reasonable for North Somerset to charge us for staff manning polling stations who would have been there anyway, split the cost for those staff?
I think it's fair to split the cost 50-50. Yeah. Well, that's common practice.
Even though they would have had to been there anyway for the general.
Yeah. They could. I mean, what's happened? I know this because I shouldn't say this. My wife works in elections actually in Wiltshire, and the government have been a lot more stringent in recent years on what can be recharged as legitimate costs associated with parliamentary and other elections. So it's they're much more they're much tighter really on the rules. So whereas you could put in a claim when I was doing elections years ago, you could put in a claim for virtually anything and the government would just write the check. So, you could really over-egg the expenses you paid your staff. You could pay half your annual pay bill through some of those schemes. So, yeah, but that's completely changed now. So there's no getting away with it. And that's 50% of the cost been having to be recharged to parish and town councils.
That seems unfair.
Can I just query, that's because of the direction of national government, in effect?
I think the government had just cottoned on to the fact that they were being overcharged for the cost of their elections, and parish and district and county costs were being charged in, and they were paying the whole lot of the staffing costs when there were combined elections going on. They said, "Hang on a minute."
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm happy to draft an email to send to North Somerset raising our concerns. I think it'd be helpful for Mike and I and others who are unhappy with the arrangement, just at least to get a reply in writing about how that charge has come about. Shall I draft something and send it over to you, Mike?
Yeah. I'm happy to do that.
I haven't seen the invoice for the the December election.
I'll provide you with the spreadsheets. They're very interesting.
There is one small point on those costs. We charge North Somerset for the cost of the halls. They charge us back again and add a 20% markup.
Can't do that.
They do. So I would suggest that when it's a local election, town council election, we do not charge them.
Charge them double.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Okay, so park that one for the moment. Okay, any other queries on the lists of payments? Sounds like silence. Right, good. Then move on to the income and expenditure account, which I think I've already circulated. From my point of view, there were no surprises in it. It was a fairly quiet month. Rachel, is there anything that particularly drew your attention to events in the month?
No, like you say, not very exciting January.
Does anyone have any queries on the results for January? Take that as a no. So, okay. We have a cash and investment reconciliation statement from Rachel, totaling. We have cash totaling £974,730.60 as at the end of January. Any issues relating to that? Yes, David.
It's just a general question. Going back to your great budget presentation last week, John, that we need to maintain this float of 300,000 plus, i.e. 3 months worth of council expenditure. So that means essentially we should have £300,000 stashed away in an account that's generating income for us.
Yes.
Interest. Is that the case?
Yes.
We got about that.
Yes. At the moment, I think Rachel can confirm this. We have somewhat less than that actually earning interest at the moment.
Well, the Lloyds Bank and the Nationwide are both earning interest for us.
What sort of percentages?
What interest? The interest?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but we're getting. Can't remember.
I mean, we should be
It's
able
going to be of the order of 2%, I would have thought.
We should be generating about £6,000 in interest a year.
We are somewhat ahead of that
Okay.
at the moment. We're expecting something like 9,000 for the whole year.
They're around £400 a month each. We're getting in from each account.
near enough 10. Okay. Any other issues on cash position? Good. And we have 2 invoices to approve for Steve's time. One which I've just deleted from my screen by accident, and another one which is for £7,533. Professional services and some expenses.
One of the invoices is actually for a deposit, which we pay up front, and then when Steve leaves us, we get it back. So,
Why do we have to pay a deposit?
I don't know. It's just something that they asked for. We paid it last time we had a locum, and we got it straight back when they left. So,
Good.
I don't know.
Is it interest bearing?
Their point of view, probably.
Yes, from their point of view.
You're like a bottle of lemonade, Steve. If we take you back, we get the money back.
Right. Does anyone have any comments on these 2 invoices? Is everyone happy to? Can I propose that we actually pay them then? First, seconded. All those in favour?
I'll just clarify.
Yes.
I'm not on technically on. Well, I'm not on the committee, so I assume I can't vote. So I won't put
That's
my hand
right.
up. Okay,
Yes.
that's just wanted to say that.
Right. So we had a unanimous vote in favour. Good. Good. Right. Do we need to have separate proposals for items 7.1 to 7.6? Yeah. Okay. Do we need a formal vote on them? Okay, moving on. The asset register. Come on, my laptop is not responding. Right, we have 2 reports, one of the register itself and one of assets acquired between April and January this year. Sorry, April 24 to January this year. I have looked at the asset register beforehand. There is further information, in fact, available from the system, which shows when individual assets were acquired. There are a number of points to make. Firstly, the old data, by which I mean most of the data that was added to the register before Rachel was appointed, is unreliable. Secondly, we have not had a physical asset verification exercise ever performed that I know of, and I would like to see one done fairly soon. Thirdly, the valuations are probably mostly completely out of date, apart from the properties which have recently been revalued for insurance purposes. I believe we have streetlights in at something silly like £1 each. So, although we have an asset register, I don't regard it as a satisfactory one, but it's the only one we've got.
I have checked all the public seats, street lights, the bins, and they're all correct. The thing that does need
You've checked, what does that actually mean?
When I say I've checked, I've spoke to the officers that deal with them, and they've given me the current list, and I've checked it against the asset register.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Very interesting asset registers with local councils in that you include in your asset register the original purchase value. So things that are now very expensive when you bought them, that purchase price stays in your asset register regardless. So that's the rule. If they were transferred from authority to authority, they usually go in as a nominal fee, a figure such as £1. So it's just the way the asset registers work. You're right to say you need an inventory alongside it, because these are assets that you are buying and adding to your asset register every year. If you bought an asset today, today's value would go in your asset register. But assets you acquired in 1976 will go in at 76's value. That's just the way that the rules work. So it's a quirk of local council.
Yeah, we don't deal with depreciation or anything.
There's
like
no
that.
depreciation of
No,
assets. No,
no.
they're not written off
No.
over time at all. No.
I
No.
understand that, but are we not using the asset register for insurance purposes?
Mhm.
I think there's a difference between like a streetlight asset and the buildings. Obviously, that's got a value, and a park or something, isn't it? So we need to know the value of the park for insurance purposes. I would have thought. Yeah. So it needs breaking down really the asset into kind of assets that you need to maintain the value of, on the others which are just an inventory.
Mike, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I did actually. I mean, Steve, you've answered really the question I wanted to ask in respect to, does it still remain an asset at the value at which it was originally purchased in terms of our collateral, I mean, and such like. I mean, the one huge cost on the list, of course, is the so-called toilet pod, the nearly 65,000. Now, these are presumably now worthless. So why do they still constitute an asset in relation to this list? And how does this list correspond to the town council sort of asset register? Is it still pertaining to be of any value?
In terms of the asset register, Chair, the values are really inconsequential. I mean, when you're coming to insurance matters, your insurance schedule will be based on actual values of the items that you actually own. I think the asset register, I don't. It's an anachronistic thing. It's the same everywhere, but I think it's principally there as a list of your holdings in case of any time whether you dispose of them or you transfer them. But it's an odd quirk of the system that the value shown in your asset register is the purchase value or some nominal value. You can't show zero as a value. Interestingly, it has to have a value or it's not an asset.
Hence the pound.
As I was trying to say,
but it's David first.
I think I was trying to say that we've got an inventory here. Yeah.
Yep.
Most of these are inventory items. Okay, they have to have for the system to work. They've got to have a pound against them, but they're just an inventory. But there are certain assets which actually are assets that have got a value that we need to track, like the halls. Yeah. And anything that we need for insurance purposes. But the rest of maybe the name is just confusing. We've got an inventory list plus some assets of value. So maybe we should.
May well be the case.
Yeah.
Rachel, how do we value our assets for insurance purposes? Do we use these asset register values that are called insurance value?
Our insurance company has a list of this asset register, and it's up to us to say what value we want our assets to be assured for.
So what is the basis on which that value is calculated?
What value we give them, I presume.
We're going to use an
Is
example.
that taken from the asset register?
Well, originally, yes, when the asset was originally purchased. Yes.
But John, if I take an example, when the skate park was built, we had to increase our insurance policy because we now
Yeah.
owned
I
it.
take that point in.
Yeah, so obviously we get at the time when it cost £350,000 to
But
build it.
let's imagine a scenario in which we have a lamppost with an insurance value of £1. Somebody drives into it and we have to replace the lamppost.
No, Chair. When you insure your properties, your assets, you carry out a valuation based on what it would cost, the likely cost of replacement. That's how your insurance premiums will be calculated. And at times, things that you're doing to your hall, the improvement works you're doing at the moment, what you could do at the end of that process when those works are completed is to have an insurance valuation carried out of the hall. And that will give you a more realistic, and you can also include, once you've reevaluated, if you've done some significant improvements, you can include that revised value in your asset register because you've renewed an asset, and that's obviously that will feed into your insurance. Yeah.
Is there any risk then that we are undervalued for insurance purposes for assets other than property?
Without looking in detail at that, I don't know, Chair. I'd have to have a look.
I mean, I assume when the new asset, personnel starts, the asset officer, then that would be something that they could look into, isn't it?
I would certainly like that person to do a physical evaluation.
Yeah.
Verification. Yes. Yes, David wants to say.
It was just two things. One was out of curiosity, where is the Harbour Road playing field? Brackets land only, valued at £50,000. And the second one was a job for the assets officer, as well as reviewing these. It would be really useful, I think, if this is our record of the assets we own, given that some of these assets, like bus shelters, some are owned by North Somerset, some are owned by us, dog bins, likewise, lights. Likewise, the job they could do is to fill out this register a bit more fully, so we actually know where these assets are.
Chair, my suggestion would be, is completely up to you whether you decide to do it or not, would be to map them on your parish online mapping facility that you have. I've seen councils, I've done it myself, where the assets have been mapped so that all your bus shelters, all your grip bins, all your defibrillation equipment is all listed clearly, and you can make that available to the public on your website.
We do actually, David. We do have lists which correspond to the asset code for the dog bins, bus shelters, etc. We do have lists that correspond.
Okay.
I think Amy's done some of that in the past, to be honest, but yeah.
Yeah, Amy and Nikki and Sharon have them.
I think this list is just very incomplete as well. Apparently, we've only got 2 litter bins, but we own a lot more than that. So I'm not really quite sure what we're looking at here, John, to be honest.
Neither am I, to be honest.
Harbour Road playing field, any offers?
Yeah, it's now housing, I think. What are we being asked to approve? Because this document is fairly meaningless, really, isn't it?
Chair, I mean, it's part of your the documents that you have to submit as part of your annual governance return that you have to. Your auditors will have to have evidence that you have reviewed your asset register. Not that your asset register is a brilliant one, but that you've reviewed it. So that's why the asset register is
We
here.
have personally reviewed it. Are we obliged to say that we're not entirely happy with it?
Well, we can re-review it in another year's time.
Okay, is there any more to be said about this?
Can I just, I don't want to drag this out, but I just want to clarify then. So just suppose we own a lamppost and it gets knocked down by a car and we need to replace it, and it's got a nominal value of £1 and it costs £500 to replace it. Will the insurance company pay up for that, or do we just absorb that cost?
Chair, through you, Chair. No, the insurance valuation will be completely different from your asset value. So, and also when you get a new street lamp, that should be added to your asset register at the value you pay for it at the time. So it will go in as probably £1,500 more than £500, but yeah, so it'll probably go in as £1,500.
Yeah. So will the insurance company cover the cost of replacement? Yeah. Even though it's shown as a nominal value?
Yeah. Because the insurance company will not see the values in your asset register. That is purely a record of your assets for you. It's not the insurance value that they're working with. Yeah.
Right. So the insurance company doesn't see that. Okay.
Okay, can I just ask? I don't know if anybody knows this, but the only Harbour Road playing field that I can think of is the one that the town council used to own that it gave up to North Somerset to build the leisure centre on. That was the one that was used originally by the rugby club some 25 to 30 years ago, I think. So that's the only one I can think of.
I think it's supposed to be Station Road. Do you not? Because that's the town council one, isn't it? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that.
Mugger in
I think the Station Road one's ours. Yes, but is there
it's
not
listed here though? Is it?
So maybe it should be Station Road then.
Yeah.
Time to review when we get an assets manager, I believe.
I think you should actually decide that. Yeah, tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a job, no?
Yes, well, look at it.
Yes,
Right,
indeed.
job number one then.
Right.
And just a point for Rachel, not to share this with our insurance company, because if you're sharing this document with the insurance company, it does include the insurance value of street lights at £1. So take that value off before you share it with them.
Just couldn't replace anything. Oh,
Right.
no.
Can I have a proposer and seconder for, what's the word here? For receiving the asset register. And seconded by David. Fine. All those in favour? Subject to reservations.
Unfortunately, I don't have to vote.
And can we also note the proposal that the asset manager, once appointed, should be instructed to verify all assets?
Yes.
Right. We now come to the risk register. Again, we are invited to adopt it. Does anyone have any issues they wish to raise? Rachel, is there any particular reason why it's in two bits, or is that just an accident of?
I couldn't get it to save as one paper for some reason.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
Acknowledging.
Are there any areas in the risk register that you want to draw our attention to particularly?
No. I've tried to cover everything I could think of. If anyone's got anything they think I have admitted, please let me know. But I've tried to think of everything that I could.
It's very comprehensive, thanks.
Okay. Does anyone around the table have any issues with it? Then can I have a proposer and seconder for adoption? Roger. And David. All those in favour? Good. Right. Item 10, financial regulations. We have the financial regulations as they stand. And we also have some proposed amendments in the separate paper as submitted by Rachel.
No, the financial regulations and the amendments are the ones that were approved in 2022.
And the amendment. Oh, my apologies.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I would like to suggest, John, is that this is postponed until I've updated them to the new NALC and then maybe bring them to council in March.
Yes, the reformatting exercise. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm personally happy with that. Yep. Okay. So do we need a proposer and seconder again? Proposed.
Postpone it.
To postpone it. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Statement of internal control. This is as prepared in the last few days by the look of it. Any areas that you would particularly like to draw to our attention, Rachel?
No, this is just something that we have to do annually. The auditors like to see that we're just looking at all our internal control, financial internal controls. So that's just what this paper covers, really.
And should that be read in conjunction with the internal audit report?
No, it's a separate paper, really.
I'm not sure quite what we're meant to do with the internal audit report. It doesn't appear on the agenda.
Chair, the internal audit report's only literally just been received in the last day or two, so
Yeah.
we're intending to put it on the council agenda.
Yeah, for March. Yeah.
It's just the statement of the outcome of the audit and any recommendations. There aren't any recommendations, are there, Rachel?
What from the auditor?
There are two. One is that we should reformat the financial regulations.
Okay, yeah.
And the other is that we need to look into the potential bad debts.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is only financial criticism as such.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry, David.
It's just worth thanking Rachel, isn't it, for the great work, because it sounded like a great report of her work over the last 12 months.
You're absolutely right. I should have said that indeed. Yes, Rachel, we are indebted to you for keeping our accounts in good order. So please accept a vote of thanks.
Thank you.
I should have asked for proposal and seconded there, shouldn't I?
Carried unanimously.
Okay, right. So are we happy to adopt this statement of internal control? Proposer? Yes. Seconder? Yeah. Voting? Unanimous. How did I know? Okay. Right. Now the heavy stuff. The HR policies, which I will freely admit I have simply not had time to read, but I understand that David has, and no doubt many of you also have. Are there issues you would like to raise?
Do you need me to stay for this rest of the meeting, John?
Probably not. This is unless you particularly want to be involved in HR policies. They're not marked as confidential, so it's entirely up to you, Rachel.
If you don't mind, I'll probably leave now, if that's okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Look, I know Steve's steer on this agenda item was that we should defer them to full council, but I thought I'm going to have to read them either before full council or before this meeting, so I read them. And I think I've copied you all, apart from Roger, I think, and you, Mike, into a quite sadly detailed email, which lists the policies that I think we've already seen and approved, and also some feedback on the policies that we hadn't previously seen and approved. Some of them may have been seen and approved by a previous council, because I noted the dates were December 2023, which is before I became a councillor, and the only reason I spotted from the list the policies that I thought had been dealt with was I remember them from previous meetings of this, where, as my fellow councillors will know, I always look through them quite carefully. So I've sent some general notes around that you've all seen. They're relatively minor comments. I think there's probably got to be a bit of archaeology done to dig out the approved versions of the policies and of the ones that we have seen already and put them up on the website. For the ones that we haven't seen as a committee during this council, I think the comments I've made are relatively small. I think 3 of the policies need passing past Evergreen, because I may be wrong, but I think some legislation has changed around periods of employment before disciplinary procedures can start, or whatever. So I can't remember what the policy was now. And before sickness absences can apply. So I think it's worth putting the capability policy and the sickness absence policy with my suggestions past Evergreen again, as a my email. And the other things are pretty small. The one thing we haven't got in our sickness absence policy, which is of course relevant to the moment, is we haven't got anything about what we do in the absence of a clerk. So it needs an extra paragraph there, just as the other policies do. What happens if there are issues in relation to our clerk. That's what I wanted to say. I won't read through the 2 pages I wrote, but I think the policies are basically great. and just need some small tweaks, and then perhaps they can be approved by council when we meet in March.
Could you copy in on that?
Now, can that be done in time for the next meeting? The
Yes, Chair.
next
I mean,
council meeting.
you're a victim of your own success here, in that you've got such a comprehensive suite of policies, and they are, you know, they usually come before the council every 2 or 3 years, so you'll be seeing these forever. Some councils only have one policy and they just nod it through, but no, you've got lots. So,
So do we need any action from this committee now?
no, I'll take those back to Evergreen with the comments that you've submitted. If there are any other comments, if you've got any, you know, before the as soon as I can have them, I'll just forward them on to Sue at Evergreen. She's got an officer there who's working on them, and they're kept. The council has subscribed to a system that these documents are in a huge library that I've got access to now. I didn't even know it existed until yesterday, but so they are all there, and the subscription does cover updates to cover changes in legislation, so they'll be done regularly. But that means every time there's an update, you'll have to have a look at them, I'm afraid.
So, just to say, Steve, it's probably worth just checking that if the versions you sent in that pack to us were the versions that Evergreen have got, they may not have the most up-to-date versions, because what we often suggest were pretty minor changes that Wendy would have made herself. So those policies that we have seen before may not be the final versions of them, which, if you get my point.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say about the HR policies? No. So it's back to Steve. Okay. Right. Which takes us to date of next meeting. 3 months' time, is it? Or 2 months?
May, doesn't it? It's next year. We don't know yet.
Okay, to be advised within the.
Yeah, I
the
think
timetable.
what we need to do is put some proposed dates on the council agenda, maybe for the committees. They're always on a Wednesday, aren't they? So it's just finding some suitable dates. Okay.
Do I have to read out the formal notice about exclusion of the public and the press?
There you go.
All of it?
Yes.
Sense. Right.